All right. So yes, so today we are going to go live and discuss how when we experience trauma that it gets trapped in our bodies and how we can utilize energy healing to be able to release this trapped trauma within our bodies. So yes, so we are
Cool. Yeah, so I mean, so the whole Dragon Dog, the whole barefoot version is that and any illness in your body, any tension, any aches and pains, any tension, but even like any emotions, it's all blocked energy. So by releasing it, by moving, you release that energy, and it's sort of, we've mentioned this. It's come up in a couple of my classes quite recently. This whole idea of fidgeting. Like we tell children off for fidgeting, but fidgeting actually allows your energy to flow. You fidget because you're trying to realign your energy centers. You're trying to realign the body, and it's a funny thing that adults, kids are so desperate to be adults, and adults are freaking miserable. It's this whole idea of that. We talk about being still, but we don't be still. We be rigid. That's the difference. We're not actually still and relaxed. We actually tend to be rigid, and rigidity builds up tension, builds up in the body, and causes problems. So this whole idea, even Qigong, I can teach you Qigong till the cows come home, and I can persuade the cows to come back afterwards. But just even allowing yourself just to fidget and just to relax is because if you've got tension in your body, that's blocking your energy, that's blocking things to flowing, and when it blocks in your body and you feel uncomfortable, and that uncomfortableness comes emotions, and emotions become tension and illness within the body. So just allowing yourself to fidget, be a fidgeter, allow the, is people sort of tell me off all the time. I'm always moving, and there's always something moving, and there's always something going on. But the whole idea is that because your body's meant to move, it's meant to flow. You look at animals are always, if they're still, they're really still, but they're almost statue still, and they're not tense. So because you like, stroke a cat or a dog, when they're really still, they're really soft and really relaxed. Might get upset because you just woke them up, but they tend to be quite relaxed. But if they're moving, they move, and the energy's flowing. So the body works in that way, that if you have to allow yourself to move, allow yourself to be relaxed, because otherwise tension builds up, and tension what causes blockages, and blockages cause issues in the body, issues in the mind, issues in your thoughts, the spirit, beyond. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. So I know that in my experience, whenever I've experienced trauma, for example, like a car wreck, and you go through the car wreck, your body obviously experiences physical trauma. And so after a car wreck, you're going to probably go through a physical therapy training, or at least some kind of, system to be able to heal the damage that happens to your physical body. But we don't realize is the energy effect that happens whenever we go through trauma that then gets stored in our physical body from the emotional trauma, or the just the thoughts that happen, the fear, the what ifs, that kind of stuff. And so when that stuff gets stuck in our bodies, it can create illness, it can create further discomfort within our bodies. And so being able to identify how trauma can get stored in our bodies, and being able to release it by, like you said, Qigong is great. There's all kinds of different movements you can do. Even just swimming is a really great exercise, stretching. There's some really great meditations that you can do while you are moving your body to bring your mind's attention to the physical areas that are causing you pain. And then through the physical act, you are able to then release it. And so I just know that it's really powerful to be able to do, and understanding too that there is the emotional side of it where you uncover the trauma, and you work through the trauma, and then you're able to bring that to your physical body and release it. And that, for me anyways, has been able to really help me move forward past some of my traumas and not allow it to affect me as much moving forward, rather finding my strength and acceptance, understanding, finding my power from the traumatic experience, if that makes any sense.
Oh, 100%. I mean, actually, I was just seeing on Instagram, I've seen Animals here, and I know he's an avid ice skater, like myself, or hockey player. And I've always said that ice skating is like a mirror. If you're tense, if you're scared of falling over and nervous on the ice, you'll feel wobbly and it'll be really hard to skate, and then when you fall over it really hurts. But if you're all relaxed and have fun, it relaxes as well. And there's actually a Qigong which I've been sort of criticized for in the past, but there's a Qigong called Drunken Qigong, and I love Drunken Qigong, and people think, oh, it's all about alcohol, and there's no alcohol involved whatsoever, but it's just pretending to be drunk, pretending to be silly. And because if you've ever seen Jackie Chan, The Drunken Master, that's what it's all. It's reflecting this really interesting fact, is that, and you mentioned it. You mentioned it about the car accident. Is that in car accidents, in an accident, if you're a fall, or even just in arguments, one of the interesting things, or in a fight, if somebody's going to hit you, what happens? If you're in a car accident, what happens? If you're falling, what happens? You tense. You tense. You tend to hold your breath, and you tense. And the interesting thing is, when you tense the body, and then the body, it gets an impact, because of the tension, all your muscles are all packed together, and it actually causes more damage. That actually, that tension actually causes more damage than you were relaxed. This is why in Drunken Qigong, if you ever remember getting drunk and falling over, you wake up and you got bruised, but you don't remember falling over, because when you were relaxed, your body actually, the impact went through all of your body, and you didn't actually feel it. But when you're awake and conscious, you tense. So the worst thing actually to do in an argument, in getting hit, falling, car accident, is actually to tense. And it is very contradictory. Well, look, it's counterintuitive. In the essence of that, you want to go because your programming tells you that's what you need to do. But babies never did that. When you were a toddler, and if a baby drops, a baby relaxes, and when it falls, it only learns tension. It actually learns tension. It has to learn, like there's a lot of controversial things, like children actually learn learn to be against somebody or to be prejudiced. It's not a natural thing. And tension is another thing that's more learnt than it is natural, is that you actually learn to hold in that tension and to strain yourself. And the problem is, from doing that, it causes issues. Most whiplashes, most injuries are caused. And I've actually proven it in a weird way, is that there was a car accident I was in, and I totally relaxed. The person next to me didn't. They had whiplash, they had the broken rib, but I pulled a couple of vertebrae in the neck, and I had nothing. I had absolutely nothing. And there's, oh, well, you're just Boggie and all that. And it's like, yeah, but there's a reason for it. Yes, I am Boggie, but there's a reason, it is that actually learning to relax. And there's a thing within martial arts. There's a martial art called judo. And in judo, they say the first thing you learn is how to be thrown. When you learn how to fall or to be thrown, then 80% of your injuries disappear, because you know how to fall. And the irony is like my teacher would say, but that technique is supposed to be for life. It's not just meant to be just in fighting, it's meant to be in life. And what they mean is that, when you in a car accident, relax. You're falling off a horse, falling off stairs. If you relax, it will actually hurt less. And in arguments, in situations, it works exactly the same. By actually catching yourself and relaxing, you actually caught the tension. Actually stores the emotions, and you get more and more frustrated. It's like, you go red because you hold your breath. So if you don't hold your breath, you won't go red. So if you don't tense, you get less angry. If you carry on breathing, breath affects your body. So a big thing. So Qigong, one of the things Qigong means is breath work. So it's using the breath in work. But it can be as simple as breathing. So there's a old Taoist saying that when you breathe shallow and fast, your thoughts are shallow and fast, your actions are shallow and fast, your emotions are shallow and fast. But if you breathe slowly and deeply and smoothly, your thoughts will be slow, deep and smooth. Your actions will be slow, deep and smooth. So with breathing is that by focusing on your breath and controlling your breath, you control how you feel, and you control how you think, and you control how you actually move. So it can be, like I say, I can teach Qigong, 5 billion different Qigongs, and each one will help you in different ways. But just simply things like try to relax as much as possible, especially if you're tense. Phil, am I, when we say, oh, I'm tense, well, that means your mind's tense. That means your body's tense. That means everything's tense. And that tension, there's a natural saying that stress turns into tension turns into illness, and illness eventually leads to death. So why get angry? Why get stressed? Because it'll kill you, because that's the whole, because one turns into the other. So those are that emotions. But so if you're tense, if you're feeling tension in your body, wiggle, move, shake, even in the middle of I've done that many times, in the middle of an argument, I start doing willow tree qigong, and they go, well, what's going on? And that solves an argument, and or kissing them. I find, the amount of times I'm actually straight, but the amount of times I've kissed a bloke and that's stopped the argument no end. That always works. But yeah, because this the whole point is, because at the end of the day, the thing with tension and stress is that it's very weird. It's actually supposed to be a teacher. It's supposed to be a Sifu. It's supposed to be guiding you, but it guides you in one or two ways. If trauma leads into issues and problems, it will guide you that way through. Eventually you'll learn. Oh, because I took it on, or because I let it overwhelm, I've ended up being ill, or it's ended up being this. But it can teach you in another way by not letting you, by changing the way you get affected by it. There was somebody I've talked about a lot quite recently, called Melody Black, who's well known in Europe, and she was, and it's a bit of a touchy subject, but she was gang raped. And one of the biggest things that happened is that she got to a point where she talked about forgiving the people who did it, and there was big uproar, because it's like, how can you, how dare and she would say, you don't understand, I'm not forgiving them for them, I'm forgiving them for me, because if I don't let it go, it's going to cause, and that, why get angry, why get stressed? Because stress leads to tension leads to illness eventually leads to your demise, to death. So that you're holding all that, let's swear a little bit, you're holding all that crap in your body, it is going to cause problems. That's what it does. And the Barefoot Doctor and the Dragon Dog Shaman, 2 skills that I've learned, that's basically, the bottom line is, if you're ill, you've got blocked chi. Clear the blocked chi, and you won't be ill anymore. Simple. Whether that illness is physical, emotional, or spiritual, it doesn't matter. in the West, we see them as different. Well, you know, you need to see a psychiatrist for this. You need to see a priest for that. You need to see a doctor for this. But no, it's all the same. It's all the same. It's all block chi. It's all block chi. So clear the block chi, you clear the pipes, and you don't have a smelly toilet. Simple. So clear your pipes and you clear the blockage. So that's the difference. They see it, whether it's a physical thing, an emotional thing, or a spiritual thing. When you actually clear your energy, you know, and that energy is both a physical, emotional, and spiritual. But when you get things moving, you move the body, you move the mind, you move the breath, you move the spirit. Breath is also spirit. When you move that, things will start to clear. That's why, you know, when people are depressed and they're sitting at home and they move, and then you go out just for a walk in the park, you feel better. You feel, I feel, yeah, because you're bloody moving, because the energy is flowing. It's as simple as that, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, that was so beautiful, Sifu. Thank you. And I wanted to mention, you brought up the kind of choice in the moment of, you know, why be angry, why react, or allowing yourself to relax. And it's almost being aware of that fight or flight mode. And especially whenever we experience trauma, you know, we have that initial reaction of either I'm going to react or I'm going to freeze, you know, or I'm going to pull back. And what happens is, after you experience the trauma, whichever fight, flight, or freeze you chose, that tends to follow you through moving forward until you address it. And so how can we, first of all, notice what, you know, where we're at, whether we are in that fight or flight or freeze mode, and then be able to retrain our brain to be able to start taking action to move those blockages and move out of that fight or flight mode?
Awesome question. So it was for me. So as a kid, I mean, I didn't know until almost in my 30s. I didn't know originally that I'm actually dyslexic, dyspraxic, and a slight touch of autism. Now, in my world, my teachers, they are skills. You know, in the West, we tend to see them as disabilities, but my teachers are skills, but the skills you need to harness. So one of the things, because of sort of those, and I always had so much to express. When I was younger, I stammered a lot and I stuttered a lot. Now I can speak 9 million miles a second, but back then, you know, I really struggled with speaking because I had so much to express. And it's the same technique that, like, for some people, like on the stage, if you and a lot, it's the same sort of technique of pausing, of that. You'll see it a lot in movies, especially like Kung Fu Panda, and the tortoise. The tortoise talks at this speed, slowly but confident, giving themselves time to think. Now that might drive you absolutely freaking crazy, but by just even pausing just a little, you get time, because when you're talking, you're thinking, and everything's going out. As soon as you stop and you breathe, it's going in. When you breathe in, you're actually bringing your attention inwards. So if you can breathe and feel and just, you know, and actually just stop and just go and listen. There's a thing in Qigong and, well, actually Tai Chi, called Xiao Shu, which is pushing hands. And now we hear the words pushing hands, we think of it as an outward thing. Pushing hands is actually the opposite. Pushing hands is actually about listening to your partner, to your opponent. And so where your hands are together and you're actually trying to relax as much as possible to listen to them. So when, by listening, by stopping and just listening to your body, you can actually feel what's going on. And if you're feeling angry or frustrated or you know, you stop and then, you know, you suddenly realize you need to take a breath because you're talking 900 miles a second but not breathing in, or you get so frustrated that you're holding your breath, you suddenly can realize what's going on. But you only do that when you listen. You only do that when you stop. you know, it's a thing a lot of men are notoriously known for. They don't listen. Well, nobody, you know, a lot of people don't listen. That's why they get so angry, because they're not listening. Not just about listening out there, it's listening in here. And when your body, there's a philosophy that, well, there's an understanding that when you get thirsty, you're already dehydrated. So, you know, when you actually get thirsty, you already gone past the point where you're dehydrated. So when you feel that tension, or like, oh, my neck hurts, it's already built up. It's got to a point where it's got so bad you now feel it. That and that's what, so the body is actually screaming at you because you haven't been listening. So if you actually start listening and just, you know, the whole idea of meditating, people think it's about cross-legged and going om. But that's a meditation, but it's not the only one. Meditation is just listening to your body. It's just stopping for a moment and just listen and feel, or however you want to describe it, but it's going inwards and you feel what's going on. And when you do it enough, you start to get more sensitive. You start to pick up, because the problem is we've got less sensitive. And like we talk about, in some realms, we talk about the inner child. You know, the inner child. We talk, or a lot of people talk about the divine masculine, divine feminine, and it's like these not actually divine. I mean, you know, Kristen is a lovely divine feminine, but she's also masculine as well. Their energies, their qualities, but you also have the inner child. And just like a physical child, where you don't listen to them, they end up being naughty, because that's the only way they get attention. And psychology has proven this. A lot of children who act up is because you're not listening. And because that's the only way they can seem to get your attention. Well, that's what's happening inside your body. When your body's aching and hurting, or you're losing control, or you stop hyperventilating, or this, you know, you're no longer in control of your body because it's pain or frustration or anger. It's because you're not bloody listening. You haven't been listening to your body. You know, you've not been paying attention. And so one of the best things you can do is to have those little pauses and just listen. Because sometimes, like in a conversation, that little pause just gives a little bit of opportunity for things to settle, a little bit for that point to come across, but also to listen, go, do I need to stop now, or do I need, what happens next? So it's listening to your body, and just breathing and listening is probably, for me, I would say, was one of the most important things I ever learned. Because with the stammer, because I was so desperate to get things out and just so focusing on the outside, I didn't actually listen on the inside. So learning just to breathe and just to stop and just to listen, just to focus on the inside. And surprise, Qigong's really good at teaching you that. But you just find techniques that help you listen.
Absolutely. It reminds me of one of my very favorite meditations is anytime I am experiencing any kind of, sometimes I would say even whenever I'm experiencing emotional triggers or physical pain, I love to sit down in meditation and just do a body scan, which is bringing my attention to each part of my body individually, and thinking about my shoulders and noticing any pain that might be in my shoulders, and moving down to my elbows, noticing any pain in my elbows, down to my fingers, and just really doing a whole scan of my body. And as I notice the pain, I stop and I ask this part of my body, what can I do to release this pain? What can I do to bring you ease? Or sometimes I'll even ask what may have caused this pain, and just allow the answers to come to me, or anything that I feel inspired to do after the meditation. And this also can work really well for connecting with that inner child, and knowing that sometimes that inner child just needs the opportunity to express itself, and then it's going to stop throwing the fit. It's almost like whenever you are experiencing triggers, emotional triggers, and you don't stop to pay attention to them, you'll notice that they get louder and louder, right? And then you become more reactive to the triggers. But whenever you slow down and you stop and you pay attention to the moment and you say, okay, I'm triggered in this moment. I'm angry. I want to cry. I want to yell and shout. You stop and you say, what just happened? Why am I acting this way? And then you can go even further back and say, okay, I notice whenever I'm in situations where I am talking to somebody who's raising their voice, my heart starts beating and I get anxious. And then I can think, okay, where in my life have I experienced issues where people were talking loud to me and they weren't necessarily positive experiences? And so being able to utilize meditation, or even just like you said, Qigong, because at that point you're utilizing a meditative state while moving your body. So it's almost like you're doing two things at once, being able to notice it and release it all at the same time. So
yeah, well, yeah, very quickly. I mean, yeah, Qigong is one of these that you know, it's like I have a line that says, you know, whatever it is, I've got Qigong for that. And the thing is, like the people have said in the past, oh, can you give me a description of what each Qigong does? So I'll be here all freaking day because each Qigong can do so many different things, and that's what it does. But you know, the whole point is finding something that does that. But you put up a very important key. You know, it's interesting. I think more in America than in the UK, where you know, a lot of people will go and have a psychiatrist and will talk to them about certain issues, or you know, in a relationship, you say, oh, you know, the relationship's breaking down because we're not talking to each other, and it's like when there's a saying in Taoism, which is where Qigong comes from, the Barefoot Doctor, Drunken Shaman, all of this sort of stuff comes from, and it says, be like a child, take responsibility like an adult, but be like a child. And when we were children, we talked to ourselves, and we get to a certain point where we're told, oh no, you mustn't do that, you know. Oh, and you know, how many movies are there somebody talk to themselves, they're mad. And it's like, but the irony is that when you talk to yourself, you're actually verbalizing what's going on, is that you already have different parts of your brain that processes different things. And actually talk, you know, and one of the interesting things, one of the tricks I learned through Taoism was this idea of like the ego. We talked about the ego, monkey mind, that has many shapes and many forms, that, you know, like past, you know, your parents, your teachers, a bully, you have their voices inside your head in certain moments. You're saying about, you know, something triggers you, you know, somebody talks to you in a certain way and you find that that's a trigger from that past thing. Now, one of the biggest things with ego is that if you've got that voice going over and over in your head, or, you know, the voice of whoever it is, and you actually say to that voice, you hit that thought and you say, okay, thank you very much for that information, is there anything else? You'll actually get an answer, and then say, thank you very much, is there anything else? And it's this really weird, because the first thing, like even myself, was that sounds silly, or you know, what do you mean you get an answer? But the voice, but it's actually, it's like a child, you know, like, you know, dad, 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 dad. Yes, son, how can I help you? Dad, I want this. Okay. And then, but if you keep ignoring, you know, or, you know, like the classic, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there? You know, if you don't answer it, it will keep going on, and the voices in your head, but not just the voices, the emotions. When you're getting angry, if you was actually to ask that anger, what's wrong? No, not why are you here, but what's wrong? Tell me what's wrong. How can I help? You'll get a feeling, you'll get something, and this is, we've lost the art of talking to ourselves, let alone anybody else. we've lost the art of talking to ourselves. And you know, and even to this, you know, this whole thing about, men don't understand women and women don't understand men. We don't understand ourselves because we don't talk to ourselves. If we don't talk to ourselves, how the freaking hell is anybody else going to, you know, get helped? Because we've lost that communication within ourselves. And if we can't communicate with ourselves, how can you communicate to anybody else? Because you're not even doing it with yourself. You know, how can I tell you what's wrong? You know, in you know, if we have an issue, how can I tell you what's wrong when I can't even tell myself what's wrong? So it's about learning to see things in a different light and flip things on their head. And there's an ancient Taoist saying is that, and there's a Western version of it as well, is that whatever issues you have, you can't solve those issues with the same idea and the same concepts and the same way that created them to begin with. So, you know, so if you've got problems, you can't solve them by everything you've done already, because otherwise you wouldn't have that problem. You have to think of it in a different way. You have to address it in a different way. You have to find another way to help that situation, because otherwise you wouldn't have that problem. Because if what you were doing was solving the problem, you wouldn't have the problem. So you need to find the thing that solves the problem. But it means, you know, communication. We talk about communicating, men communicating with women and women communicating with men, but we have to actually learn to communicate with ourselves first, because how can you express yourself? You know, the biggest thing with, you know, people, you ask a child, you know, what's wrong? I don't know. And a parent will go, it's like, why don't you know? You know, let's go into this. You know, what are you feeling? It's not what's wrong, because I don't know. They say I don't know because they can't describe what it is, because it's feelings, and feelings are feelings. They're not a physical thing to most people. But you ask the feeling, what are you feeling then? What is it you're feeling? And when were you feeling this? And when you start going through that, you find a pattern, you find what's going on. But you have to communicate, you have to talk and ask. And just like you should and would do that for a child, you have to do that for yourself. There's no point just allowing yourself to be angry or be frustrated, because there's a reason for it, but you have to delve into it and find it and express it. And another Taoist thing, like a lot of people, or sometimes people, Boggie, you're very loud, you're very angry, or you're very this. And it's like, yeah, but that allows me to be quiet when I need to be quiet. Because they say, you know, you do all this Qigong, why aren't you always happy and always quiet? It's like, but nobody's always quiet and always happy. But if something annoys me, I go, rah, and then I'm okay, because it's out, it's gone. I don't hold it in, because holding it in is what makes you ill. Holding it in is what causes the problems. Half the issues we have in the world is because people held things in and resented saying stuff and didn't do what they should have done. and that's, you know, that's the thing. But as any good Taoist should say, hey, what do I know?
Well, I think it's so important that you mentioned the expressing it part, because that part is essential for the release. So, you know, if you do the work, you go in and you ask it, and you hear what they have to say, and you find it all out, and you say, okay, I held space for this. Now, then the next step is to take it and actually express it, and find a way to do that in verbally. I can't stress how powerful it is whenever you have a thought in your mind and you verbalize it, you vocalize it, you bring it into the physical experience, because then you are now bringing it out of the monkey mind and you're putting it out into existence, and you're affirming it for yourself. Whenever you hear yourself say it, then that's now no longer ignoring whatever the thing is that might be trapped in your body. You're saying, I acknowledge this, I see you, I'm holding space for you, I know what needs to happen, and now I'm going to make that promise to move forward and do the thing, you know, to be able to express it and release it from the body. And releasing can look like all kinds of things. You know, it really depends on, you know, what it is. But if you need to scream, scream. If you need to yell, yell. If you need to cry, cry. You know, if you need to have a conversation with just yourself, so powerful. And being able to be honest with yourself when you're having these conversations too. It's like, it's so easy to be able to sit there and almost lie to ourselves when we're having conversations, because we want to direct where the outcome is going to go, right? But whenever you just allow yourself to be honest and authentic, and you go with the flow of the conversation, then you actually find more healing from it, because you've allowed it to fully express itself. So I know for me anyways, it's always so important that I be completely honest. And, you know, even though sometimes the honest things, they hurt, sometimes they make me sad, sometimes they, you know, bring up other emotions that maybe I don't want to feel, but that's where the power comes, because you're holding space for those things that, if you choose to ignore it and push it aside and say, oh, you know, I see you, but I'm going to deal with you later whenever I have time or whenever I'm ready or whatever, that's actually building the tension in your body. Every time you kind of push it away and deny it, it grows stronger and stronger. But whenever you express it, you're calling your power back to yourself. And now you're no longer having this trauma or this experience sitting over here holding all of this power, because you are choosing to not express it, but rather bringing it back to yourself and vocalizing it. And so just being able to find the power within yourself that comes from being able to express these you know, traumas or experiences in your body in whatever way works for you. And sometimes expression is painting or writing or, you know, movement, dancing. There's all kinds of ways to be able to express this energy, but just making sure that you follow through with that last part, it's so powerful.
It is, and yeah, there's two very important things there, you know, and like one, that expression, you know, is yeah, well, in actual fact, you know, before I even did qigong, I first did acting, and part of when I did acting as a kid, one of the things we did was spontaneous dance, and I freaking loved it. You know, the whole idea of oh, you know, you know, you can do anything you want, but it's that expression, the fact that you can express yourself, and it can be dance or it could be art, and you know, and express it, and it doesn't matter what nobody should give a flying fig what you do, you know, what you're doing. When kids dance, or when kids, you know, paint something, and you know, and it's like this, and it's a butterfly, and it's like, okay, you know, but you know, it's their expression, they're expressing themselves. And we were, again, it's like that thing, be like a child. You were meant to be able to express, and we've sort of gone into this thing of, oh, do fighting, or do kickboxing, or go to the gym, and you know, let out your anger that way. And yeah, it works sometimes, it works for some people, but expression sometimes can be dance, and can be art, and that is really important. And there is, funny enough, surprise, there's a qigong. There's called spontaneous qigong, so you can learn all these qigong moves, and then you just move where you need to move. And that's like fidgeting, you know, the whole thing of that was saying about fidgeting. It's spontaneous movement, it allows yourself to express yourself. But there is another thing, and it's about children are blatantly honest, are super honest, especially toddlers, you know, and yeah, they can say some really cringy stuff. And the interesting thing with that is that we, you know, is that what parents don't always realize is that how you shape your children, you're shaping an adult, you're shaping the future. So when children say something very blatant and or a little bit embarrassing, and you say, you shouldn't say that, you're suppressing them straight away. You're teaching them right there and right then to suppress your emotions and thoughts and feelings in the future. Obviously, if somebody's saying, "Oh, that person got really big ears, really big nose, and then it really weird looking," but you can shape that, and you say, "Yeah, but they got big ears because they can hear, and you know, and you know, and this," and you teach them to, you know, express themselves in a certain way to shape that information. But when you suppress stuff, you're from the beginning, you're suppress. So when children, you know. I always say, one of the biggest things I always say is that children, so children sit at the bottom of the garden playing with fairies and talking to things, imaginary friends, and we say, you're people will think you're mad if you talk to imaginary friends. Then we go and see a psychic. What? Is that we say one thing is bad and then we go and do something that we said was bad? Is that children are seeing, the open up their imagination, and we're shutting that down, and then we then contradict that by saying, we're going to do this, or we're going to do that, or and it's the thing of is that we were all open. We were all open to expression. When we're kids, we're far more open to seeing energy, to seeing things, to be psychic, but we expressed ourselves openly, and children will say things that as adults we think are inappropriate, but our world is inappropriate. Our world, we've closed ourselves off so much, and I'm not saying that you should necessarily offend people, but we've got to a point where we're scared to saying certain words because it might offend this, that, and the other one, and we're getting more and more restricted, and that will affect our minds, our bodies, and our spirit. And then we'll get more repressed and more ill, and then wonder why. Wonder why we're breaking down. And like I said, I'm not saying that you should blatantly say everything, but you should learn how to find ways to express yourself, like you said, through art, through dance. Go in the woods. One of my old friends, the Barefoot Doctor, Stephen Russell, no longer with us, but he would talk about being angry, and he would didn't have a dog, but he would take a dog chain and he'd go into the park, and he would at the top of his lungs he would say, "Rolly!" And he would go and shout for this imaginary dog that he had to let out his tension, let out his frustration. And that was his, and then he'll look round and say, he's here somewhere. Where is that darn dog? And he hasn't got a freaking dog. But it was his way of playing, having a bit of fun, and expressing himself and letting out that tension. And it's like, and it's very silly, but that's the point. We're meant to have fun. We're meant to play. We're meant to be a little bit silly. We're meant to express. And I know that because if you're ill, if you have tension, if you're waking up in the mornings in your 20s upwards feeling aches and pains, you shouldn't have that. You've got aches and pains because you're holding in your tension, your frustration. Yes. If you're in your 50s and you feel like, you want to give up on the world, you shouldn't be like that. But it's because you're full of tension, you're full of blockages. If you're angry, you get in the car and you're shouting at somebody before you even turn the ignition on. That's because you need to, find way, and this is the thing, all the anger in the world, all the frustrations in the world, a lot of it is because we're not expressing ourselves. We are not listening to our own bodies. We've closed off so much that we're missing the point big time.
Yes. And I can tell you from personal experience, my early 20s, I want to say I was around 22, I would go to the doctor and complain of my back aching. I would have migraines, my knees would hurt, and I would talk to the doctor, and the doctor would be like, you're too young to be experiencing this. And it was because I had a lot of trauma that I had not worked through. And now fast forward, 8 years in the future, I've worked through my trauma. I've done my healing. I've been through multiple different ways of healing through this trauma, and I don't wake up hurting. My back doesn't hurt. My shoulders don't hurt. I don't experience migraines anymore. And if I could have told myself at 22 that if I would have just dealt with my trauma and gave myself space to express myself, hold space for the emotions that I was feeling rather than continually trying to dismiss and ignore them, which I did at the time because I just didn't think it was necessary. I didn't want to relive the trauma. I didn't want to bring it up and sit in my sadness was the big thing. It was like, a lot of the times we think whenever we go through healing our trauma that it's like digging up stuff that we just don't need to, it's in the past. I don't need to think about it. I don't need to worry about it. But the reality is that yes, it is in the past, but if it's still affecting you in this now moment, then you haven't worked through it to be able to release it. And so, just from my own personal experience, it's been very powerful to be able to release that. And now I feel better than I did when I was in my 20s. I am full of energy, and I'm able to move and run and play, and I think that's the important part, really, is the play, like you said, and being able to play in a non-judgmental way. Like, if you want to go and blow bubbles as a grown adult in the park, then go blow bubbles. You might be surprised how many other adults want to come blow bubbles with you, and it's like, by
more than you think. More the amount. Well, like the play parks, and like before COVID, how many parents would actually be in? Oh yes, I'm in here because of my child. No, you're not. You're in it because you want as much fun as they do. But it's the whole point. And the scary thing with a lot of the medical profession now, I've known people in 24, 25 who doctors have said, "Oh, that's old age." It's like, what do you mean it's old? You should be saying that at 80, let alone at 25. But it's learning that you've got, and you said a very valuable point about like, oh, it's in the past, I don't want to bring it up. Well, it's already brought up. If you're still affected by it, it's not in the past, it's in your present. And there's a Buddhist saying, a Taoist and Buddhist saying, is that you have a backpack. You have a backpack, and everything that as you go on, you pick stuff up and you put it in your backpack. And if you don't empty the backpack, it gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And all those traumas, all those feelings, every time you're picking them up, you're putting them in your back. You're literally carrying them. And then when you think, oh, I've got a bad back, well, that's a metaphor. You're still holding on to a load of shit. I got, oh, my neck, my shoulders hurt. The world is on your shoulders. Oh, my neck hurts. From what you're imagining, from what you can believe and what you can physically achieve, there's a blockage you can't do. And so, because I've done Shindao massage, when I'm massaging people and I'm saying this stuff, oh, you're a psychic. I'm not a psychic. Your freaking body's telling me what's wrong with you. You're just not bloody listening. And it's it's the understanding is that, as the Tao saying, that everything is a metaphor. Everything, when those physical conditions you're feeling or emotional conditions you're feeling are literally metaphors for the things you haven't let go of yet. And it goes back to that thing I was at the very beginning. If you're ill, if you're stressed, if you've got any physical, emotional, spiritual ailments, it's because your energy's blocked. Simple.
Yes.
It's blocked.
And that's why it's so important to engage with energy healing and to allow ourselves to, move our bodies and to understand that we are not just physical beings, we are energy beings as well. And to bring the attention to both is absolutely just empowering and healing. And I wanted to mention too how beautiful it is whenever we hold space for children in a way of not judging them or not expecting anything from them, but just allowing them to be. And so allowing them to express themselves freely, and how powerful that is for them as they grow to learn those skills of being able to express themselves. Because like you said earlier, a lot of the times, let's go back to the fairies. You've got a kid who comes to you and says, oh, I'm out playing with the fairies. And you say, oh, you're not, oh, that's cute, or you're creative or fun or whatever, maybe you're even nice to them about it, but you're discrediting their imagination, their creativity, their experience. And they're going to then move forward and they're going to question their own experience. They're going to then move forward and doubt themselves. And it's those little moments that you probably don't even realize that these little things get instilled into children. And as they grow larger and larger and larger. But whenever we hold space for them in that moment to express themselves, then they can become closer with their own selves, being able to move forward in their lives to just fully express and maybe not have to have all of that trauma built up in their body. And then when they get older, they don't have to go through and work back to all of it, because they were able to just work through it whenever it happened. And I think that can work for even just any age group, really, just being able to hold space for people and yourself.
It's an interesting thing. People like say to me is that, like when I talk to kids, they say, you talk to kids in a very interesting, in a strange way. And it's like, no, I treat them like adults. I talk to them in a childlike way, but I talk to them like adults. And as for the whole fairy thing, alphabet agencies, you guys in the States, your alphabet agencies, I once said to one of your alphabet agency guys, so when are you going to admit that the fairies, the unicorns and the Bigfoot exist? And they said, we are fully aware that there are different dimensions in reality, that there are certain places that slip in and open. And actually NASA just last year said that there's 14 dimensions where they now realize that there is life within these dimensions. So the next time you scoff about fairies, just be aware that the alphabet agencies actually think they really do exist, and they got evidence to prove it. So and that's the point, that's the point, is that we, what can we really see? What do we really know? Our bodies are, energy. Our bodies only appear solid because the frequency they're going at, when our hands go together, it's the same frequency. But in quantum physics, we know that there's so much more in there. We know that there's quarks, and there's so much more within space that we can't see. We know that our physical eyes, only see 1% of actual reality. 1% of what physically exists, we only see 1%. And they also know that our eyes should be able to actually see infrared and ultraviolet. And our brains have that capability, but they don't know, and our eyes can actually pick it up, but it's not going into our brains. We're not picking it up. So there's all this stuff, so before you throw that into the mix, throw that in that when people are thinking about fairies, or there's so much that we've closed off that it doesn't exist. We don't believe in it. And if you're closing that off, that's one thing. But why are you closing off your emotions? Why are you closing off how you feel and think? But we class it as the same thing. That's the point I brought this up. We class our emotions and our feelings and being affected by stuff that happened 20, 30 years ago as the same as fairies. We see it exactly the same. It doesn't exist. It's like, yeah, it does bloody exist, because you're still being affected by it. You're still ill by it. It's caused trauma. So of course it blooming exists. But that's that understanding. You see things in a different light. Open up your reality. Open up your point of view. See things in a different way. Whatever you're doing now isn't working, otherwise you would be healthy. So do something in a different way. Do something a bit differently. But hey, yes, as any good Darry should say, what do I know?
Well, I think you know quite a bit. I always appreciate our conversations. You always share so much beautiful wisdom. I truly appreciate it. I know whenever it's like whenever you're feeling sad, right? You're going through a period of time where you just feel sad, and you're like, oh my goodness, I just feel sad today. I'm going to do sad things. I'm going to listen to sad music. I'm going to turn on a movie and wear my sweatpants and just be sad and give yourself space to do that, right? Then you wake up the next day and maybe you're not so sad. But if you feel sad and you're like, oh, I'm too busy today. I've got a million things I've got to do. I've got to go to work. I've got to see my friends. I've got to take my mom's dog for a walk, or whatever the case may be. If you ignore that sadness, you'll probably find you wake up the next day still feeling sad. And so it's one of those things where it's like you really have to be able to hold space for yourself in honor of whatever emotions you're going through, whether it's happy, sad, angry, whatever it may be. And then it no longer has to be drawn out. Now, I understand there are definitely periods of time where, depression and, there are exceptions to the rules, but it can always help to be able to hold that space in a healthy way. It's like being aware of it and not saying, okay, I'm sad, so I'm going to be in my sadness. And then I wake up the next day and I'm going to intentionally do sad things like listening to sad songs or watching sad movies because I know I'm going to be sad. That's almost like setting the intention the next day for yourself to continue those emotions moving forward. And so, of course, you're going to wake up the next day and you're going to move through that. So it's just really finding that power of intention and knowing that you really can manipulate your reality through your thoughts and your words and your actions. And so just being mindful of whatever it is that you're doing and what you want to achieve. If you need to hold space for yourself to feel that sadness, do that. But at some point, if you feel like you've expressed it, then you can start creating the experience you want. You're like, okay, I've worked through my sadness, I've held space for it. Where do I want to go from here? What can I do to be able to create something, exciting for myself, or to feel loved, or, to then move forward and heal from whatever was causing that sadness. And so, just really being able to be honest with yourself and holding space and playing and having fun and just being, as humans, we have a hard time just being. I feel like a lot of the times we have these expectations we place upon ourselves, or even we feel like others place these expectations upon us. And so we begin to act or think or do in a certain way that's not necessarily in alignment with our truth. And so whenever you come back to that center and you begin acting, speaking, thinking based on what is actually in alignment with your truth, you find that life flows much smoother and it becomes much more enjoyable.
There was a technique that my Sifus taught me, and I use it. I don't always express it, but I use this technique, and it's like you were saying about that sadness, and it's like, whatever emotion you're feeling, and people, oh, you must repress it, or oh no, you must be happy, and it's like, no, must be, you're stopping it. So, but what you do is, right, for the next 5 minutes, or for the count of 10, or for the next hour, whatever you decide, for the next period of time, I will allow myself to be angry, scared, whatever it is, and allow that. So I'm going to give, and I think I saw it in a movie as well, is that for the next 10 seconds, I'm going to count to 10, and I'm going to allow myself to, like they were in, I think on a sinking ship or something. So for the next 10 seconds, I'm going to allow myself to be scared. I'm going to allow myself to that panic. And then after it, then I'm going to get on and carry on and do what I need to do. So you give yourself permission for that period of time to express it. And I do that in like, well, when, and this freaks people out, because I could be really like angry, and then go, right, okay, right, let's go back to eating, or let's go and like, oh my God, you're weird, it's like, no, you express that anger, you allow yourself to express it, and you give yourself permission to express it, and say, but once I've expressed it, then got to do this, and then we go, but yeah, and it's that whole thing of either suppressing it or wallowing in it, and then that wallowing is, the thing, when you wallow in mud, you get mud everywhere, and you're covered in mud, and then it takes ages to wash it off. So, over exaggerating it, being in it more and more and more, it becomes a habit. That's how habits are formed, by doing something over and over again. But you give yourself a period of time, a portion of time, say, I'm allowing myself, I invite myself, Brendan, if he's here, I'll Skull Babylon, invite yourself to be sad, scared, whatever it is, for a few moments, for that period of time. And as soon as it's done, you move on. And it is far more powerful than you believe. It's far more powerful. It's sort of, and I've done this with kids, like saying, right, okay, for the next minute, scream as loud as you can, be as angry as you can, stop your feet as much as you can, and you've got 1 minute to do it, and then you go, right, now you've got to stop, and you go, and how you feel, and they go, oh wow, because you gave them permission to be the thing that you're told you're not allowed to be. But when you actually, and it's the same as asking the ego, what's wrong? how can I help you? What can I do? Okay, is there anything else? Thank you for that. Is there anything else? So when you give yourself permission to do that, you're actually that's what he wants to do. So if you allow yourself for 1 minute, for 10 seconds, for whatever it is, to do that, and then go, right, okay, is there anything else? No, good. Let's go on. Let's carry on. And it's a tool. It's a very powerful tool.
Yes, it reminds me. So when I was younger, I worked with 3-year-olds. I taught the class of 3-year-olds, and people would come in and they would be amazed because, you know, we would have different classes of 3-year-olds. In one class, everybody in the class would be going crazy. The kids are running around. There's somebody screaming. There's somebody crying. There's somebody pulling somebody's hair. And then they would come to my classroom, and it was like this load of peace just comes through, and the kids are behaving, or they're you know, playing nice or whatever it was. And people would always ask me, what are you doing with these kids, or why are they behaving this way? And it was because I would always treat them as though they were an adult, and not in the fact of how I speak to them. Obviously there's a certain language that you use with a 3-year-old and not with an adult, but just being able to understand that whenever you speak to these children and you say, you know, I see that you're acting this way. Why are you acting that way? You might be surprised what they say back. You may not understand all of it, but giving them the space to do that, or even explaining to them, like, I had one kid in my class that had behavioral problems, and she was always kind of like pushing the other kids and starting fights. And so I began working with this girl, and what I would do is every time she would have an issue with another kid, I would go up and I would stop her, and I would look at her. I would get down on her level and look her in the eyes, and that way we're kind of equals in that moment. And I would say, do you see your friend over there? She'd go, yeah. Do you see them crying? Yeah. Do you like it when you cry? Does it feel good when you cry? She says, no. And then it never failed. She would turn around and she would go apologize to that other kid or give them a hug. You know, I mean, a 3-year-old can only apologize in so many words, but she would understand because I helped her stop and see and recognize in that moment what was going on. And within 3 months, the girl didn't have behavioral problems. She wasn't pushing other kids, and she was nicer at home. She wasn't being so aggressive. And I really do think that it's just because I brought it down to a level of being able to help her understand what was going on. And so it's like just being able to see that if that can happen for a 3-year-old, what kind of power can that have on you in this now moment, wherever you are, and seeing the power of just being able to stop and slow down and assess the situation and give yourself space to see with compassion and understanding. Like, you know, it's easy to be hard on ourselves when we go through periods of time where maybe we are really angry. Maybe we're going through, maybe something really traumatic just happened in our life, and we have every right to be angry. And so we express ourselves and we get angry, but then we form that habit of, you know, continuing the anger. But if you stop and you say, okay, I understand you're angry. It's okay to be angry. It's understandable to be angry. But what can you do in this now moment to ease the anger, to ease the pain, or to understand it, and to be able to then move forward with it? It's just absolutely empowering.
Yeah, and that, you know, that's the thing, is that we've got to, you know, it's sort of saying the same thing again, but it's realizing that, you know, you need to actually talk to yourself and talk to your emotions and talk to those feelings like they're well, they're you, that because they are freaking you. That's the point. But you're ignoring them, and this is what people, you know, when we're ignored, we don't like that. So why do you think, you know what, how do you think that parts of you, you know, your past of you, oh, it's in the past, oh, it's just an emotion, oh, it's just a feeling, oh, what do I don't understand why I keep getting angry, because you haven't talked to it. What do you mean you haven't talked to it? You haven't, you know, and like, you know, like, you know, the little girl you talked about, you know, oh, she got better. Yeah, because you freaking talked to her, you dumbass. You know, if you actually talk to people, things change. If you communicate with them, things change. But why do we think? Because we don't realize that everything is conscious, that we don't realize that everything, you know, that our emotions are part of us. They're shadows of us. They're parts of us. So if you actually express them, they are there for a reason. that you need to find out what that reason is. So talk to them, or you experience them, listen to them, and you'll find out what they are. When you see them as something separate, they'll be separate. And you'll never actually get over them or through them, because you're not actually dealing with the situation. You're seeing it as not being part of the situation, part of being you. And that's the point. You have to see things in a different way. That you know, simple. You know, I keep saying it, but you know, that's the thing. When you've got an issue, if you've got an issue, and what you're doing at the moment is not working, do something different. Find a way to communicate with it. Find a way, you know, sit down and listen, talk to it, whatever it is. And if you actually start talking, being like, how would a child, that's the thing, how would a child deal with this situation? They would see it as being a person. They would talk to it. They would ask it. They would talk to themselves. I don't know why I'm angry. Well, what? You know, go to it, you know, and give yourself a hug, you know, do something, or do this, and find out, you know, express it, allow yourself to express it, then allow yourself to let it go, allow yourself to move on. You know, it shouldn't be rocket science, you know, it shouldn't be hard, but it's just that our reality, our society has closed off so many things. We've put so much into a box. And we said, you know, this is not real. This is not real. This is, you know, it's just an emotion. Emotions as real as, you know, your thoughts can affect your physical health. Epigenetics proves this, knows this, and yet we still ignore our thoughts. We still ignore our feelings. We wonder why we don't feel well. Yet we continue to be angry, we continue to be frustrated, or we berate ourselves for not getting things right. When keep telling yourself off, keep telling the child off all the time, and now think, oh well, I must just be naughty, because why do you think you are any different? If you keep telling and berating yourself off, you won't try, you won't figure things out. You'll just get worse because you're not helping yourself.
Yes. It's like classic manifestation law of attraction. You know, you're trying to attract more. Let's say you're trying to attract a better job into your life, and you're doing all the things to follow through with it. But somewhere in the back of your mind, maybe you don't feel like you are worthy of that better job, or you don't feel like you're capable of that job. But you're not giving those thoughts any kind of attention, right? Because you're trying to manifest the good job. And so what you don't realize is those little thoughts in the back of your mind that are like, I don't really feel worthy of this, but I want this, I need this, I'm going to create this for myself. But then that little thought in the back of your mind that says, maybe I'm not really worthy of that new job, it's going to grow and grow and grow the more you ignore it. And so if you stop and you recognize it, you hold space for it, and you release it, then you find your manifestations or the whatever it is that you're trying to attract into your life comes in a lot faster and a lot smoother, because you are removing those blockages around it.
It is one of the most powerful things. Kuan Yin, I've always got a couple of Kuan Yins about. So Kuan Yin, the goddess or priestess of compassion. She has 3 treasures or 3 virtues. They normally could say virtues, and her 3 virtues is forgiveness, gratitude, and unconditional love. Is that, and when you can forgive yourself, be thankful for everything, not just the things you choose to be thankful for, but everything, and you have unconditional love for everything, things change. It really does. And the biggest thing, you know, like we say, oh, I hate my job, I want a new job, I hate my job. What are you focusing on? The hate in your job.
Yes.
You're focused on hating your job. So the thing and the way the mind works in psychology, the way the mind works is that the mind, the brain, it can't tell the difference between what you imagine and what is real. So they've done this in science. They've done this with sports people. They've got sports people, you know, athletes, to pretend to get ready for a race or whatever sport they do, to do that sport in their head. Their muscles start to flex, their body heats up, they start to sweat, because the brain can't tell the difference between what they imagine and what is real. If you keep focusing on what you don't want, you'll get more of what you don't want. You have to actually focus on what you do want. And to focus on what you do want, you actually have to say, oh, okay, right, I don't like the job, but what do I like about the job? Focus on the things I do like. Now, even even I've done this, and I've seen things at the job, I didn't enjoy, but I would go, well, okay, this is good, and that's good, and this is good, and that's good, and then as much as possible, trying to do the things I do like as much as I can, so doing the qigong and whatnot, and things do change. It does work, it does, but if you keep focusing on what you don't want, you get more of what you don't want. We know this in psychology, and we actually know in quantum physics that the observer affects the experiment. The experiment is this reality, and you are the observer. And we need to, actually embrace this for real. Is that we realize, know that, you are the creator in your reality. People don't like that. Oh, no, that's God. That's something else. That's the government, that, because they don't want the responsibility. They're scared of it. But if you want to change your reality, you absolutely have to take control of your reality, and you have to focus on your reality. That's how you change it, is by focusing on it.
Absolutely. It reminds me of an experiment, and I do not know the name of the experiment, so I apologize for that, but it's an experiment where they took a robot and they programmed the robot to move randomly in a room. So there was a small room, random programmed robot, and they followed its pattern just to make sure that it was going to randomly move throughout the room, and pattern absolutely showed. And then what they did was they added brand new baby chicks to the room on this side of the room, and they still had the robot programmed to be able to move randomly throughout the room, right? So they didn't change the programming of the robot. All they did was add the baby chicks. The baby chicks longed for their mother so strongly that the robot felt the intentions of the chicks and noticed after a while the pattern of the robot began to be really close to where the chicks were. It was no longer randomly spread throughout the whole room, but rather focused on being close to the chicks, because the intention of the chicks to be with their mother was so strong that it, pushed that intention out into the space and attracted the random robot movement. Yep. And so, it's like, and that's just an example of a chick wanting their mother. It's not even the power of a human brain versus something physical. And so that experiment's always so powerful for me, because anytime I come across a situation where I'm like, oh, well, maybe my thoughts aren't creating my reality. I remember this experiment. I'm like, that's physical proof. I mean, they don't change the program of the robot. What else could have caused it to go in that direction?
They did that with a number generator, and then they added a person and got these people to focus on, say, like 626, and then this number, so it went up to 1,000, and the number generators started to actually have that number that the people in the room were focusing on started coming up more and more and more, and it's part of, like, goes back to the whole split experiment with the atom, was that all the scientists, there's 14 different scientists, Einstein was one of them, and they all said, oh, this is going to happen. They all went off, did their experiment, they were all right. They thought, hold up, how can we all be right? So they all went, did each other's experiment, came back, they proved that the other scientist was wrong and they were right. And they started doing experiments, and they found that the observer affects reality. And so this is where, like, you've got people like Elon Musk that believe that we're living a simulation because of things like this, because they've actually found that we can actually affect the things around us. And you can say, oh, yeah, I don't believe in it. Well, tough. Yeah, you're right. You don't believe in it, you're right. But if you do believe in it, you're right also. And epigenetics is actually the same, is that your physical health is literally affected by your environment. And your environment is your emotions. How you feel affects your physical reality, as in health and everything. But it's not just physical, it's also, you know, you focus on positive stuff, you'll be more positive. And it goes back to, there's a thing Bruce Lipton does, what's called the love experiment. Is that if you have a life, you know, you've got a shitty job and a shitty route to work and a shitty house and a shitty partner and everything's all shitty, but then you fall in love, or you suddenly find love again with your partner, that route to work isn't as suddenly it's not as bad as it was, or your job and your boss is suddenly not as bad as it was. Things change, and the only things that changed is your perception that you are now in love, you're feeling love, but everything else is affected because of that. And it was this big awakening for Bruce Lipton that if emotions can do that, what else can they do? You know, that your reality can simply change by the way you think and feel. And we already technically know this. When somebody wakes up and they bang their head, or the alarm doesn't go off and they're late for work, oh, it's going to be a bad day. You've just said what's going to happen. You're putting down the law. I joke about I think a lot, Boggie law this and Boggie law that. You're creating the law for what's going to happen in your day, and your day will go that way because you said it's so. And you know, I say this so many times, and people, oh, I don't believe in that, and it's like, yeah, but you're proving it's right because you don't believe in it. If you believe or you don't believe, you're right. You're always right, because the observer affects the experiment. They said that in quantum physics, they say that in epigenetics, and that's the thing, is that we are far more powerful than we were led to believe, and we're far more powerful than we let ourselves believe. And it's all about, you know, changing it. You can really change so much stuff just by the way you think and feel.
Yes. You know, I challenge anyone that might be listening to this, that if you are questioning, if you're not sure, to try it out. Give yourself 30 days, practice waking up and holding gratitude and setting positive intentions for your day. Wake up and say, today is going to be a good day. I am successful. I am happy. And I am grateful for my car, my job, my love, whatever it is. Find things to be grateful for and set positive intentions for your day for 30 days. And watch how things change, because I promise you they absolutely will. And it's just because it is that positive intention that it's funny to me, because it's like, you know, it's the power of love. Like, love really can cure. It can bring about healing in the most unexpected places, and can really truly be life changing. And it's like, anytime you have something that maybe seems unsolvable, try putting love on it and see what happens, see where it goes, because
There was a case study done with that, where they did it in a slightly, you know, because you know, the affirmations, they work to, they do work a lot, but they work to a degree with some people. But what they did a case study where they got people and they asked people, I think it was like 12 things that guarantee to make you smile. You know, and then what would happen every single day, a random generator would get one of those 12. So they couldn't not know what, they didn't know what was going to happen, but one of the 12 things that guarantees to make them smile would pop up, and it was, so every single day they get a different thing, and it affected their day. That you know a baby laughing, or a cat video, whatever a certain tune, whatever it was, but every single day it'll be something else. So they couldn't get used to it and then go, oh, you know, it doesn't affect me anymore. It kept picking 12 different things, and they had a random generator that would do it, and every single day, and they did that for 30 days, and their life improved. Because, so, you know, if you know, it doesn't have to be an affirmation. Affirmations don't work, don't use affirmations. But the point is that whatever makes you smile, whatever raises your heart, whatever the love effect, Bruce Lipton and the love effect, whatever makes you feel loved is what will change your reality. You know, and that's how you do it. You know, this whole thing of you know, blah, blah, oh, what you believe is true, and oh, I don't believe in that. Well, then that doesn't work for you. But it's your emotions, it's the emotions that affect your reality. So keep lifting your mood, keep lifting your emotions, and that will affect your life. That will affect things all around you. So, you know, it's, you know, like I say, you know, you used to have, used to have a box, and I do it a different way now. But I used to have a box, and okay, right, I've got to put this on, I've got to put that on, because that and you know, I used to have on my phone, because hear my own voice makes me laugh, because I think I'm crazy. But I'd have on my phone the alarm call saying, wake up, Boggie, it's time to get up, wake up, wake the park up. It drove everybody else crazy. Well, I thought it was hilarious. And yeah, and doing things like that, do things that make you smile, do silly things, do things, you know, whatever it is, doesn't matter about anybody else. Because at the end of the day, is that when you worry about everybody else, that's why you get serious, that's why you get ill, that's why things go wrong. It's about focusing on what brings you joy, or you joy, because in this case, you're the most important person. Bring you joy, then you can help everybody else. And that's, you know, that whole thing, oh no, you know, you mustn't focus on yourself, then you're going to get fucked, then you're going to be ill, and things will go wrong, because when you worry about everybody else and not yourself, you'll deteriorate. You have to focus on you. And that's not a selfish thing. It's not selfish. It's because you being happy makes other people happy. That's the whole freaking point.
Yes, you can better show up for others whenever you've already shown up for yourself. You know, it's like one of my teacher's favorite things to say is, life is like a box. You're going to get out of it whatever you put in. And so understanding that whatever you want to receive from life, put in tenfold and you will receive. And so, you know, it's just understanding that you know, if you want to see healing in your life, to put your intentions on healing. If you want to see growth, then to put your intention towards growth, and to follow through with the action of it as well. So, but absolutely.
What she said.
Well, Sifu, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been just an absolutely lovely conversation as always. I always adore the wisdom you share, and your beautiful Boggieisms. Let's keep them going. I kind of want an alarm clock now. That's Boggie screaming, wake up!
Hey, be careful what you wish for. I might find a way to hack into your phone and do it for you.
Yes. But thank you so much to everybody that joined in today and held space. We so appreciate you all. And I hope everybody was able to get a little bit of wisdom, maybe some smiles and a bit of love out of this conversation. And yes, I send you all off with so much love for the rest of your day. And Sifu, it's an honor as always.
And ditto. It's an honor to talk to you. I always enjoy talking to you. So thank you very much.